Welcome and thank you to everybody for taking the time to attend this webinar. My name is Joe Hardy, and in the next 30 minutes we're going to take you through a live demonstration of Interica OneView, show some typical client workflows before passing to our partner RoQC to show the integration that we've completed recently with them and the way that their own technology interacts with ours. Following that, we're going to have a question and answer session. And what we would ask is that if you've got questions during the webinar itself, can you please use the chat window in the bottom right of your screen, type the question in, and we'll prioritize that at the end. We are going to, or you're going to hear from a number of people in the next 30 minutes. So in the order that they appear, you can see the faces so you can relate to them on the right-hand side. Final comment, we are recording this particular webinar for distribution to people who were unable to attend. So I'm going to just put up 2 PowerPoints before I pass to Jenny. So the first is to just give a few words about Interica for those who've not worked with us previously. We're a global company, and we focus entirely on data management in the energy sector, and we've done that for some 25 years. We've got skilled staff across the world and in various disciplines to support the work that we do with some 150 clients, and they're both large and small. You'll see from the right-hand side that actually we do a lot more than to develop technology, even though that's the focus of today's presentation. And we also undertake significant consulting work, especially and increasingly, in fact, in the area of digitalization, as well as data management consultancy, where we both provide skilled staff, as well as delivering strategic consultancy itself. So I said that we were going to focus on technology. The application we're going to take you through today is Interica OneView, which is the basis of the integration with RoQC. And this is the latest and actually a very major development in our product suite. I'm putting up here a workflow, and this is the one that Jenny is going to take you through in a moment. The purpose of this is that it can be difficult to follow demonstrations where there's limited interaction. So the purpose of this is just to give you a roadmap so you know what to expect. So firstly, Interica OneView has the ability to scan data sources. Now that can include not just file systems on the network, but also remote data, including, in fact, public cloud. We've developed very comprehensive connectors that can identify projects, which for us is a group of data and databases from almost all the petrotechnical applications that you as clients would use. Not just the ones here from partners such as Schlumberger and Halliburton and our sister company Petrosys, but many others as well. So having identified the projects on file systems, we can extract very detailed, very rich metadata, which is the data that's describing the data itself. We also have gone to great lengths to normalize that metadata, which means to make it consistent over all the applications that we manage. And that's really important for our users because it allows the data to be both visualized in a consistent way and analyzed. And it often provides very surprising results to clients, even where data is believed to be very well organized. A common and actually very obvious analysis is to use these bits of data to identify duplicate data. But there are very many more applications as well. Now, we're very clear that we want to allow our users to undertake actions with the data. And again, obvious ones would include the ability to create what I think of as being smart archives, that is secure archives, but with full metadata available so that people can always identify and retrieve the correct projects within the archive itself. One of the reasons for often doing that can be to move data to cost-effective long-term storage. In the past, that would have been tape. but now we still use tape, but disk, and increasingly public cloud, as well as private cloud or object storage, so we can manage all of those. And the final thing that we can do with all of these capabilities is to allow our clients to manage the data environment by applying governance rules that they develop with us. And we use also the automation that we've tried to apply over all of the features and applications that we developed. And that allows summaries and alerts to be sent automatically to managers. So that's all that I plan to say. I hope that set the scene. I'm going to pass now to Jenny, who will take you through a live demonstration of Interica OneView.
Thanks, Joe. And welcome to everyone who is attending today. So the screen in front of you is our latest OneView release. I'm just going to give a quick introduction to this. There'll be some details at the end if anyone would like a more detailed demo at another time. So just to take you through this, our setup is based on a Windows and Linux system with an SQL database. We have all our applications that we scan for present on their native operating systems. So that's to be similar to a customer setup. Now, if I look in this table at the top of all our live data, you'll see various familiar technical applications such as Petrel, TechLog, PaleoScan, Petrosys, Hampson Russell, and various others that we have in the list. So data within the demo comes from the New Zealand, Volve and Goldfax data sets. I'm just going to rescan that there. That's reloading. Essentially what happens is we have tasks that scan a customer's file system to search for these project databases and collect the rich metadata, and that ends up in the tables on the screen here. So that can be file level statistical metadata, or that can be metadata on the actual applications themselves, so details on the actual projects. So on the left here, we have a list of icons down the side. These are all the options that are available in OneView. So the top option here is the house. This is the home button. So essentially, this would take you back to the screen that we're on now. You'll notice that some of them are orange in color. These are the ones that are currently displayed on the screen by default. So we can click on or off of the options to display them as we prefer. So if I just click off the map, you'll see that we have a table view here. Now the top table is all the live data. This is the data that's been scanned from your file systems. The scanning can run as frequently or as infrequently as required. And the bottom table is all the archives that have already been processed. So in the top table, if we move from left to right, initially you will see details such as the connector or application name, version, and the name of the project. Then we move to all of the statistical file level metadata, such as last modified date, last access date, and the users of the project. As we move further over, we then come into more of the actual project metadata that we've gathered. So this is information such as 2D survey counts, horizon counts, well log and curve counts. And as we get to the end, we have details on the connector host, the scan time and status of the scan, as well as the project CRS. Now for the archive in the table below, we have exactly all the same information, but if we go over to the right, in addition, we have information on the actual archive. So this could be extra details added at the time the archive was processed. So to start off with things like archive time, status of the archive, and a name, as well as company information, such as which business department requested the archive, and the name of the user. So if I click on the next option down, we have Data Explorer. And if I select one of my Petrel projects, you'll see that we have this tree structure list. This is our top level goal metadata. So effectively, when we have scanned the file system for these projects, we have normalized the metadata from different applications to our goal level standard, and these are all the top levels of the information that we collect for each project. So you could navigate into the 2D surveys or the wells and look in more detail at your data. So if I just click on the wells there for you, you'll see all the information that's been collected by our scanning. So this is all information on the wells within the project and the metadata that relates to that. If I was to further expand the wells, we have all the details that are available below. So the check shots, the well logs, the well tops, and the zonation information. And you can obviously navigate further through these to locate data that you're looking for. So the next option down that we have is, so if I click on the map, and I'll just deselect the Depth Explorer, that makes it slightly larger on the screen. And if I select my live project option, so when an item is selected in either of the tables, this highlights the corresponding project map, vice versa. So anything highlighted on the map would be highlighted in the table also. So some details for the map. We have a base layer map selector. So if I was to click on this, there's various options available to make your image display different. So you could click on any of the other options, but my preference is the National Geographic. We then have a map layer selector. So this could be extra details, layers that you want to add onto your map, perhaps from an internal GIS system. So I could, for example, add on 2D surveys and details of the wells, or other information might be such as licensing permits. So the next option down that we have is the chart. I click on the charts option. This gives us our size by age chart. So this basically shows us our largest and oldest projects that we have on disk, and these might be good candidates to be moved to less expensive storage and be archived. The next option down is the totals list. This is displayed by default. This is the bar along the bottom, which gives information on all the live and archived project size on disk and the counts of the projects. And then the at the bottom are regarding our views. So if I click on a view, now distributed with the system, we have two factory default views. One is a shorter version, is called the IT view, and this is just sort of file level statistical information. And the factory default view is all of the goal metadata that we've assigned to be in OneView. In addition, you could have extra company primary key values or important values that you want to be in that table as well, and that could all be configured. So what I do in the demo is I have all of views for all of my applications. So for example, you could just go straight to your Petrel data or your PaleoScan data. It's also possible to do it by area. So you could just click on Norway and see all your data in Norway. Now for today's demo, I've set up two webinar examples. So first one. So in this option, you'll see the search bar at the top here. If we click on the ads filter, it's possible to add searches for any of the levels of metadata that are in the OneView system. So up the top in bold, we have the top level options, and then further down, if you know what you're looking for, you can select any of the details there. So it may well be that you want to look for data in a certain basin or that was archived at a certain time. As an example, I've set up two already saved searches. So you'll notice that they're grayed out. So they've just been deactivated at the moment. But if I was to enable this search, this is an example of a search for a well name. So I've picked Arcadia 1. And if I enable this search, it will search projects in our database, regardless of application, that contain that well name. You might want to go further. So, for example, if you have an extensive list of projects, you might decide that actually the data you're looking for is in Petrel. So if I put that search, this would then limit it to just the projects that are in Petrel. So if I go back to this first list of just the Arcadia one, you'll see that lots of the project names here appear similar, lots of Canterbury projects, and this may be a good idea to have a look at these on disk and to analyse the information that we have in the tables for possible duplication. So we could look at details such as the application version and size and the information that's in those projects. And this could result in removing some of these from disk, or else deciding to archive some of these projects. So essentially, if I wanted to archive one of the projects, simple workflow to right click and select the archive option. This would then in turn run the archive workflow, and the project would then appear in the table below. Likewise, an archive that we wanted to retrieve for some reason, we can right click and click on the restore option, which would then run this workflow and restore the database into the live projects. Now, when Ian from RoQ speaks in a short while, he'll be talking about the integration, and essentially this is where the projects would come into the archive in OneView. So my next example here is a search. So again, I've put some examples in the search filter, but essentially here I have a blue box on my map. I've decided that I want to locate some data in northern New Zealand, and we have this option to search within the map area. Enable that. This will just limit the projects to those that are in that area. We want to go further and decide that the project we're looking for contains process data, for example, and we might want to look on data that has a certain number of horizons. Enable that search. It would then be reduced to one project, which is a large Taranaki project, which resides inside that box. Let's go back to the map area search, and the other useful thing you can do is perhaps you've decided that you actually want to extend that area, so it's possible to reshape the box, which again will in the tables, so that now we have 37 projects. So when you create your view, this is all the information in the live archive, the map and the layers, any GIS information and any of the searches. So you might want to save this, so you can save your view, and you could save that in your corporate system to use again. So we have these extra options down the bottom, which are just regarding importing views from colleagues, exporting your views, or saving these shared views. There's also some help option down the bottom as well, which gives some details on the workflows. So hopefully that was a quick run through for everybody. Like I mentioned, there'll be some details at the end if you'd like to contact myself. So, and I'll just hand over to Jamie Heisey, who's going to speak about the relationship with RoQ.
Thanks, Jenny. That looks great. As Jenny said, my name is Jamie Heisey, and I'm the Global Partner Manager for Interica. If you look at the screen in front of you, you'll see a bunch of companies there, partners that Interica work with, and that ranges from technology companies like Amazon and Microsoft, where we deploy our technology, through to some of the big software developers, Schlumberger, Emerson, Halliburton, etc., who we connect to via the APIs, and the results of which Jenny just shared with you. Today, we get to see the results of some new integration with our new partner, RoQ. For clients who use Petrel, this provides some great new capabilities to use data quality metrics to drive archiving and restore decisions from within the Petrel environment. RoQ have integrated with OneView via the RESTful APIs that I think Jenny mentioned, but please do reach out to us if you'd like to know more about this. So I'll pass over to Bjorn and Ian to tell you a little bit more about RoQ and also take us through the new integration.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, Bjorn.
Very much. So my name is Bjorn Thorsen, and I'm the CEO of RoQ Data Management. A short introduction to RoQ. We are a specialist software company that specializes in data quality, data management for subsurface data. And with a focus on quality assurance, we can help customers set key performance indicators to classify projects and data and directly correct that data that is reported. And that's also the basis of our cooperation and partnership with Interica. That is to use RoQ quality classification to identify candidates for archival. And the reason we can do this is the membership and partnerships we have with OSDU and Schlumberger's Ocean and Delphi, as we are native plugins to both Petrel and Studio. And Ian Barron, our CTO, will now show a demo of our cooperation and integration with Interica. So Ian, will you take that further?
Thanks, Bjorn. Okay, for this part of the presentation, we're going to take a very Petrel-centric view of the world. As you can see, Petrel on screen there, and with our licenses in place, you get the additions to the ribbon bar with a series of tools that are used for QCing your data, finding data that you have which does not comply with your standards or generic standards, and fixing them or bringing them up to higher quality. Our central part for doing that is what we call the audit report. It looks a bit like this. This goes out and runs a whole series of queries against the data and brings back everything that is potentially broken or wrong or low quality, and gives you links to a suite of tools where you can go in and directly rectify all of those problems. So it's very much focused at increasing the quality of your data. Now, when the audit report is run, either individually in the Petrel project or against hundreds or thousands of Petrel projects, it collates the audit results and puts the audit results into what we call audit history. Let's see if we take an example here, which is a little bit more realistic. We'll load up a set that has about 3,500 projects in it. And because this is an audit history, if you imagine that this company would be running the audit report once a week, then at the end of the year, you'd have 52 copies of 3,500 audits. And this application here gives you the overview of how your data quality has been changing with time. And what you can do with this, when we're linking it up with OneView, is, for example, we could go in and we could look at the last modified date for the projects, and we could see that, okay, we could take all of the ones 2012 and 2013, and everything else here we're going to ignore for the moment. So we have filtered out on one criteria a set of projects that would be potential for archiving or actually just removing from the system. We can go through and we can look at a myriad of other properties here to help us define which we're going to do with it. So you can look at GWL qualities, at your seismic, it's coordinates, CRS information, all sorts of criteria that you might choose. How long was each of the projects interpreted for? And use that criteria to pull them out and decide whether to delete them or archive them. And of course, you can get visual impression. Oops, let's just select some data. Visual impressions of this as well. So we can produce spider diagrams of it, and then you can run through and have a look at the spider diagrams with the multi-axes, giving you a very quick impression of what the quality is like. 100% good, by the way, would be a nonagon filled with color. And these settings in here, of course, you can go in and choose whatever you want. So we were looking at seismic there. We'll just go and look at well data instead. And you see it redraws with all of the well data on it. So ways of choosing which projects to archive based on the quality of the data, not counts or presence of it, but the actual quality of it. Now, to show you the interface a bit more, I'm going to take this back to the very simple example. Let's get rid of the filter. So in this one here, I brought it down just to a few projects. Imagine this is our 3,500 again, and this is the results of the filtering it. And you filter on your quality parameters using this interface, or in fact, any of our interfaces, because it's all integrated. So if we went into a web browser, we could find another interface to exactly the same data. Here are our projects with qualities. We could look at the charts, which brings up the spider diagrams again. And we could have gone into any of these and brought up data quality over time for them. So multiple ways within our environment of helping you identify which projects to archive. So this is the results we're pretending. We choose one or many of these, and you can see in the interface here that this hasn't been archived at the moment. And we could go in and connect to Interica and give it the URIs that it needs and the user password, tell it to connect. And then we can go in and choose a catalog and an archive set. This is exactly the same sort of stuff as Jenny was showing you earlier. It's inherently connected into that. And say OK on that. And if we want to archive it, we just click on it to archive. Now, of course, in this case here, we're choosing one project, but in the real world, you may have chosen 200 or 300 of them to archive at a time. And you don't want to sit around in Petrel locked up waiting for that to happen. So what it's done is it has thrown the job requests out to OneView, and OneView will be handling all of that, and Petrel is freed up. So we could exit our apps and exit Petrel here, and it will continue running in the background. Now, to find out what's actually going on, we can then go in with a job monitor, which will reconnect to OneView and find the current status. You notice this says pending here at the moment. And we can sync that current status back in here at any stage, like we did now, or it could have been 3 weeks later. And it will show you that this one has successfully backed up to OneView. Now, we can then delete this project from the file system, take it away from the user environment, and we still have it in the OneView archive. So 2 years later, you've come back and you want to pull this project back and restore it, and you can do that from here. You can click on the restore. Now, because it's in our database here, you know all of the data quality parameters that were used or were relevant when this was archived, so you can use them again to bring it back. So if you have 5 projects that are covering an area and you want to bring log data back from those 5 projects, you don't know which ones to go to, you can go back in here and find out which of those 5 projects had the highest quality log data and use that one for a restore. And it's just select them and hit on restore, and it will restore it again. I think that's probably a concise description of how this integrates with OneView. And you can see how, from the Petrel user's point of view, how simple and easy it is to select the subset of the projects that you want to archive, where to archive them to, as to which collection in OneView, and send them off to that, or restore them later if you want to. So I think I'll hand this back over to Interica so that they can manage the process of questions.
Indeed, thank you very much for that. So we will now have a question and answer session. We do have a couple of questions that have been asked, and actually, in term to be speaking about this, I'm going to ask Jamie Heisey to start the answers to those.
Yep. Thanks, Joe. So the first question there, I think, is from Tom Roger. How will you relate to the OSDU? What happens when all subsurface data migrates to, e.g. Delphi, and resides within this environment? Quickly, from the Interica perspective, we are OSDU members. We are working on integration with OSDU at the moment. We see that integration at a couple of levels. One, to be able to support search across sort of what you might term legacy petrotechnical environments and data sets, and also to be able to enhance those search capabilities to be able to search across OSDU data instances as well. So providing a holistic view across the different environments and perhaps different OSDU implementations within an organization at the moment. Also to be able to migrate or ingest data directly from your legacy environment into an OSDU environment. So in this case, we would, for instance, select some seismic data where we've got a huge range of metadata to describe the content, and instead of archiving or migrating that data to, say, object storage, we would traditional object storage, we would migrate and ingest that data into the OSDU data platform. Again, with Delphi, as we said at the start, we are Schlumberger partners, and working with Schlumberger in a number of different ways, and some of that is around Delphi ingestion, but it's sort of a bit early in the process yet to go into a bit more detail. Ronald, did you want to, or Bjorn?
I'll take it.
I could probably take it if you want, Bjorn.
Okay, just put the slide on Jamie so Ian can answer to our slide backdrop.
Yeah, I was just going to talk. He's going to say that we're members of OSDU and working with ensuring that our software works happily with OSDU. We should be finished with certification on Delphi this week, and we have Delphi native applications as well as, shall we call them, lift and shift within the Petrel Delphi environment.
Great. And there's another question there, I think, from Owen Pedrog. What is done to the data when you click on the archive option? Is it compressed or some other kind of formatting? So in essence, when you click archive, and as Joe mentioned at the start of this, you can there's a couple of different approaches to archiving. You can look at policy-driven archiving. You can do individual sort of manual archiving of specific projects, and obviously you can do that in the RoQC Tools now with the presentation from Ian. But in essence, what you would do is add additional metadata or business data to the data sets that you're archiving. And then those data sets would be streamed to a destination, and that destination could be disk, it could be private object storage, or it could be public object storage. We are not compressing the data at the moment. What we are doing is expanding the destination to support to include archive tiers. So for Amazon, for example, that would be something like AWS Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive. That would be Azure archive, Deep Archive as well. So we're not compressing the data in any way, but we think that there are significant cost advantages to being able to move that data down into very low cost storage. And of course, when you restore data from the project that you may have archived, you can choose to restore the whole thing or just individual files.
So there's no formatting done to that data then?
Absolutely not, no.
Okay. So the advantage of it really is just to be able to move it to a different location and save costs that way.
Exactly. Certainly from an archiving perspective as well, it enables you to take inactive data sets that's currently in the organization and move that off of expensive primary storage into something like low cost object storage. But it's entirely up to the client which storage destination they want to choose.
And does the application...
Can I add a bit to that, please? One of the advantages of going through OneView like this is that you don't just take a copy of the Petrel project and store it in a back cupboard somewhere. But in the process, whether you trigger it from OneView or from our side, it generates a tremendous amount of metadata that you can use, so that if somebody thinks 5 years down the line, oh damn, did I have a good horizon coverage of such and such from that project, you don't need to restore the project to find out. You can look at the metadata to find out whether that horizon was there and what sort of coverage it has. And if it's done from our side, then you have all of the results of the audits over time to show you what the quality was of any of the data that was in that project. So you don't have to do a suck it and see restore. You can go and have a look beforehand and find out whether it's worthwhile bringing back that project, or in fact search for which projects actually have the data you want.
So does the application keep track of where that, if it's in Deep Archive, does it keep track of that it is actually in Deep Archive and can get it back?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, this is a tremendous change up from just a weekly backup.
Yeah, in the past, it was if you archived, it was always like remembering where it was or getting it back was always an issue.
No, the point here is that you're not poking in the dark. Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
You can use the metadata to help you find what you're looking for. Instead
Or
of
you-
trying to think, oh, was it in that project done by him or that project over there, and which version was it? Here you can do all of that analysis beforehand and then just go straight to the project and bring it back.
Absolutely, thanks, Ian. So we've got another question from Phil Smith. Is the RoQ app included in the OneView license? There's no additional cost from the Interica OneView side. Obviously, you would need to have the RoQ application and certainly reach out to Bjorn, Ronald or Ian for any questions on that. The next question is from Trond. What resources are needed to do the scans on local file systems and databases? Certainly from the Interica OneView perspective, we would need access to the data areas, to the areas where you've got data. For some of the applications that we integrate with, we may need to invoke an application license as well. But as long as we have access and the technology is deployable, and we can get to that data, whether it be on-premise or in the cloud, in file storage in the cloud, we can bring all of that information together into OneView. Ian, did you want to add to that from your side?
No, I think that was covered well.
Yeah. From Lisa, does the metadata include horizon names as well as coverage of horizons? From Interica OneView, all of the applications, and Joe mentioned this at the start, that we are integrating with and collecting metadata from, we store in a normalized metadata structure. Jenny was able to display that with the project browser. So when you click on a project, you can then start to see the horizons, the information associated with horizons, the interpreters, etc. And also on the log side, we can obviously capture information associated with the curves and zonations and things like this. So, Ian, was there anything?
No, again, you covered
Okay.
it.
And a question from Owen as well. Does it integrate with Studio? I will let Ian answer on their integration because they've got some quite sophisticated integration with Studio that I know. From our side, we integrate with Studio specifically for seismic data. So we enable you to archive seismic data sets that are maybe no longer sort of active to exploration efforts, etc. So you can archive those data sets, those seismic data sets to, for example, object storage. And within Studio, you would still be able to see those seismic data volumes. There is a toggle in the find window in Petrel, and you can toggle live seismic versus archive seismic. And in the properties window of those seismic volumes, there is a URL, so you can restore directly those seismic volumes from archive. So that's just on the Interica OneView Studio integration. But as I say, maybe you can describe a bit more about RoQ integration.
Well, we obviously have very similar tools to these on Studio, but if you extrapolate from what you've described, you can see why we haven't built exactly this interface straight on Studio, because it wouldn't be terribly applicable to say, here's a Studio repository, archive it. That's somewhat too specific for the real world. So this interface that I was showing is on Petrel and doesn't have a direct equivalent on Studio. But the acquisition of quality data and the auditing and everything that I was showing you is almost identical on Studio.
Yeah, and I think, Ian, the question is interrogate Studio, and with our plugin to Studio, it interrogates Studio. But to your point, maybe not the same for archive.
Okay, so I think that was the last question. Please do shout out if you've got any more.
Indeed. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to everybody in the audience. You'll see on the final screen here, there are 2 email addresses. If you have any questions following this, please address them to either one of us. We'll share the questions. Otherwise, thank you to our colleagues at RoQ my own colleagues and to you in the audience. I hope you enjoyed and got something from the session. Bye now.